comfortable, y'all, because I'm going to be all over the place today. I don't know where to start. I mean, news is actually coming out fast and furious. Some things are interesting and others are just like, oh, wow, I should have known that would happen. Let's get started with the big elephant in the room, and that is the Queen's Buckingham Palace. There was like some kind of freeze or moratorium. What do you want to call it? No colored people, no people of color. In other words, no non-whites will work for clerical positions at the Buckingham Palace. I wonder if there were any non-whites working in any position at the Buckingham Palace. None of this should come as a surprise. Remember that? Remember when Hillary Clinton said, oh, I'm not surprised. When the whole thing about the racism and the Duchess of Sussex came out, Hillary Clinton was one of the first people to jump to her defense. Now, mind you, Hillary Clinton is not necessarily one of the closest people to the Windsors, but she certainly has spent her share of time as the First Lady and eventually the Secretary of State behind the walls of Buckingham Palace and or Windsor Castle. And, you know, as an American, you know when there's a lack of diversity. So if Hillary Clinton says I should not have been surprised, then understand that as Americans, we know what diversity looks like. Ever since the Civil Rights Movement, there has been a march toward integration. And so if you just look at some of the sitcoms and television shows from the 1960s, you'll notice all of a sudden black people are popping up everywhere as recognized members of a society that beforehand pretty much ignored them. And what made the difference? Young people. Young people were the ones who decided, you know, there's a lack of diversity and we are not comfortable with that. You know, because of the Civil Rights Movement, the baby boomers who were, you know, getting to that point, let's say it's the mid-60s, so some of them were post-war babies, aka the baby boomers. And they were really pushing for this idea of diversity in all places, whether it was in the media, government, private industry, everything down to your local grocery store. They were pushing for diversity. Obviously, Buckingham Palace was pushing back in the opposite direction and have been for a long time. Now, I'm not going to directly blame the Queen for this because I don't know, but the facts are what they are, and you can't ignore that. Harry deserves all the credit in the world because he was raised in a system that did not necessarily recognize minorities or non-whites, if you will, as equals, but he's been educating himself a lot. Harry's evolution on race and unconscious bias evolved as a result of this incredible relationship that he has with his wife. When all of a sudden he noticed that people changed, they became different. And these things he didn't notice before because he was enveloped in this life as a royal. But now that he has removed himself from that culture, see, all businesses have a culture. All families have a culture. Every branch of a business or family has its own culture. Every household, every building, every group, every subgroup, they have their own culture. And you don't recognize these things until you remove yourself from it, but not just physically remove, but it's kind of like joining another tribe. So now Harry, he's in the United States. He's removed from that family. People are not standing on ceremony around him. It's not the same old good old boys club. Now he actually has a chance to really get to know people outside of the pomp and circumstances of the House of Windsor. So now he's a part of our tribe, and now he's seeing things differently. But none of this would have happened to him the way that it happened until he met his future wife. And then he noticed that people got different. Because remember, he told Oprah, things were already starting to become strained even before the wedding. And of course, you know who I blame, the person who's closest to him, his brother. I think to myself, and I mentioned this in another video, who would be close enough to Harry to say the things that was mentioned in the Oprah Winfrey interview? Who would be close enough to strike that kind of blow but a sibling? That is very much a competitive sibling to strike out against their sister or brother like that. And I believe that that's the person who asked about the baby's skin tone. That's the person who wants to protect that brand and make sure that the baby won't have a title. I feel it in my guts, and that's just what I'll always believe. The Queen and her sense of duty about doing things the way that they've always been. I think of a 25-year-old girl who supposedly has the weight of empire on her shoulders, or what was left of the empire at that time, which became, of course, the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is her favorite child. And, of course, she's doing everything that she can to preserve the Commonwealth, to actually maintain the prestige of the country and of the crown. Okay, but you know what's happened in between age 25, your coronation, and of course the dismantling of your empire? Time has gone by and tastes have changed, and people want something different. And that's why there's about 44% of the young people in the UK who would love to see the monarch removed, the royal family removed, and replaced by a duly elected president or prime minister. They don't want that life anymore. They don't see it as consistent with the direction that the world is going. And that's why you have Cain and Abel. That's why you have those two running around Scotland trying to look relevant. That's why they have a YouTube channel, because they want to perpetuate this idea that they actually do something. It's so interesting how the Queen is so relevant and engaged and curious, and how she steadies the nerves of the country when it's convenient for her and the brand of the royal family. But anytime something goes wrong, then you can shift the blame to the men in gray suits. You can't have it both ways. Either you're in charge or you're not. Either Charles is in charge or he's not. But somebody has to take responsibility. The idea of having a prime minister is so that you can shift all political blame to an individual and use that person as a lightning rod. So if that's the case, then what do you do? How do you justify your sovereign grant? How do you justify all of these empty properties around the country when you have a huge population of homeless and people that are struggling for decent, affordable housing? And you have multitudes of property that is going unused. And I'm a realist. These places are of museum quality and they're part of the national treasure and culture. Be that as it may, then build some more affordable housing. Really get involved. This idea that the country is spending hundreds of millions of pounds so that you can provide charities with your name and you can cut ribbons and pull back curtains and expose plaques. You know, that would be nice. That would be really nice if there weren't so many people suffering. When the whole idea of racism in the royal family was really put on blast, when they first had to answer for certain things because of the Oprah Winfrey interview, all of a sudden we find out that Prince William once slept rough with a black man. He slept with a black man, so therefore he can't be racist. How does that work? How does that work? And then every place that Prince William or Prince Charles would visit those days thereafter, you would always find them in the company of black people, and they made sure that those black people were put up front. Then you had people who received their OBEs or OBGYNs, whatever you call those things. Those people received those medals with those, I know one of them have that particularly racist image on it. Those people were the ones who said, well, I don't, they're not racist. Oh, how do you know? Nelson Mandela was welcomed at Buckingham Palace and at the Windsor Castle. I believe he stayed at Windsor Castle. There has been all of these, shall I say it, virtue signaling events. All of this virtue signaling by the Queen and the rest of the family. Yes, that stuff happens, but it's the unconscious bias. It's the traditional bias that really defines whether or not there is any form of racism. There's always that unconscious bias. Those microaggressions, those are the things that really prevent families of color from having wealth and privilege in their families, a good education. They miss out on all the trappings of what a wealthy society like that of the United Kingdom can provide, because they're not seen as equals. And so when you say, Meghan made Kate cry, and then when you find out that it was actually Kate that made Meghan cry, we don't question that Meghan somehow was cruel to Kate. But when we find out that it's the opposite, I mean, after all, didn't Kate wear something that, at a glance looked to be a white outfit, one of her famous coat dresses, which, shows off her long, slender torso? When she wore that, in all the photos, I'm sorry, it looks like she's wearing white. And being that close to the wedding party on the wedding day, Oprah, I remember Oprah said that she had this wardrobe crisis before the wedding because what she was planning to wear looked embarrassingly too white to be that close to the bride on her wedding day. So at the last minute, she changed her mind and wore something different. You would think that Kate, being in the wedding party, would have worn something else. Since she loves to recycle everything, then you have a whole multitude of outfits that you could have worn. I mean, you wore this burgundy color to, I don't know, was it Beatrice or Eugenie's wedding? How come you couldn't wear that to Meghan's wedding? Why did you have to wear white? But she did. That's the mean girl. That's the peacemaker. That's the one that everybody, well, let's not say everybody, let's just say it, her Uncle Gary Goldsmith, that's the one who, he's trying to paint this picture of her being the peacemaker and everything of goodwill and good taste. When the truth is, what was the article? The lady said that she was plastic, that she was just there to breed. They got married in 2011, and the same darkness that evolved around Princess Diana is still happening today. Nothing has changed. Nothing ever changes for that family. And the people who uphold and support that racist institution are the people that are making money. It's not a cottage industry. It's just a flat out infrastructure of industry that does nothing but cater to promoting that family's image. Good and bad. Mostly good for those who are the key members, and pretty bad for anyone who is lower on the ladder. So if you're on the lower rung of the ladder, then you're the one who catches hell. The whole idea, one of the commentators, I won't say his name, but he said that there should have been a 6-month period before Meghan was allowed to do certain things. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted to build as much prestige for the family by demonstrating this wonderful blended family of, they're bringing in this mixed race girl. So, that just lets the Commonwealth know that we're hip and of the age. They didn't want to delay pushing Meghan out there. And it wasn't that Meghan wasn't ready. The only thing that they had to worry about is that which was inevitable, and that is that the media would attack her. And they did. And instead of trying to uphold and support this star member of the family, they just pushed her into the lion's den and closed the door behind her. You'll get no help from us. We're just glad they're not attacking us. That's what it really comes down to. The Queen should have retired years ago. And one of the things that just really struck me was Carol Middleton. Carol Middleton. They accused, at least one person in particular, accused Meghan of being the ultimate social climber. What do you call a Carol Middleton? What do you call that person? Carol Middleton has a bit of a dilemma. Now think about this. Your daughter is a future queen, and the current queen, the sovereign, is 95 years old. She may live another 5 years. She may live another 10 years. She may even live another 15 years. She could easily be 110 years old, lingering at the Windsor Castle, out of sight, of course, but she could easily be 110 years old before she take her last breath. And so then you have Charles, and if he's anything like his parents, he may live another 30 years, or close to 30 years. I don't know how old Carol Middleton is, but would she even be able to go to a coronation? Do you see where I'm going with this? And so this, if I was Charles, I would use that Kensington, what do they call that with Princess Victoria, the Kensington method or whatever, where they wouldn't let her walk down the steps without holding someone's hand. I would just be careful if I was Charles. Not that anybody's going to do anything to him, but it's not even that. It's just that you have a lot of people that have put the evil eye on you and wouldn't mind if you checked out sooner rather than later. As a matter of fact, they really don't want you to be king at all, and if there was some type of way to build a case to secure the idea that you just simply shouldn't be the king, and don't think it can't happen. Because if you look at some of the old archival documentaries and footage and such, if you read some of the press accounts, and even some of those declassified letters from different ministers, you'll find out that the Queen's uncle was pushed out of there. The Duke of Windsor didn't leave. He was pushed out of there because people felt he should not be king. That's why Elizabeth II is queen. is because he was coerced to abdicate. And he did, for the woman that he loved, if you remember the story. So don't think it can't happen again. And if I was Prince Charles, I would be very, very careful, because the two people that he was hoping that he could rely upon to really give him the moral authority to step onto the world stage as the King of England, as the King of the United Kingdom, as the leader of the Commonwealth, the two people that he needed the most to make this possible, one of them really wants the job before you, and the other one is no longer interested in you ever being king either. So, I mean, you just, the two people you need the most, your sons, doesn't seem like either one of them are going to give you much support. I don't ever see William so close to his father, which is strange. You know, and he doesn't approve of his stepmother. That's pretty evident. So, like I said, you guys, this is going to be a long one, but I still got more stuff to cover. But thanks for staying with me if you have been on board thus far. But there's so much palace intrigue going on there. So much. And it's not looking good for that family. And maybe this will be the thing that causes it all to fall down. And I never thought I would be one of those people that would applaud seeing the institution itself go away, because, you know, I don't have to live with it. And for me, it's just a curiosity. It's fun. It's interesting. You know, it's the whole fairy tale of it. But when I saw the treatment that the Duchess of Sussex received, it changed my mind. And if I can be changed, me being the ultimate Anglophile that I am, if my disposition has changed, I wonder how many other people will also have felt this institution has exceeded its it has exceeded its life expectancy. Now it's time to move on. So, to be fair to the Queen, I do know of a few positions that relates to her, such as the let's say the Archbishop of York, the Samutu, was that his name? He was like the second highest ranking person in the Church of England. I believe the Queen threw her support behind him. Also, to be fair, Queen Elizabeth appointed the first black equerry. I believe his name is Major Nani Kofi Sumasi Akura. Ugh, that's a mouthful. Anyway, he was hired in the position of the Queen's equerry. So basically, he made sure the Queen was comforted and safe wherever she traveled. And wherever she traveled, he would travel. Now, I believe by the time he took the position, you know, he's a young man. There were no more of this traveling around the world stuff. And he's not the first non-white person to have that position. I'll remind you of that too. And then I believe the Queen's chaplain, she's of African descent. So, and you have to ask yourself, was the Queen just, you know, keeping up with the times? Or were these people put in these positions to show to the Commonwealth how we have evolved? You know, and then, of course, very famous from the movie The Crown, where the Queen danced with a black man while she was visiting Africa. So there have been those moments. So I'll be fair to the Queen and say that. But as an institution, have things really changed that much? There's been state dinners for people from Africa and of course, for Barack Obama. There have been no state dinners. So it's not an outright blatant racism where things are on the world stage and where it, matters with public image. But behind the scenes, how much diversity can you find within the walls of that institution? That's really the big question today. Is since the 1950s, how much do you have to show for it? At the end of the day, there was a highly qualified woman of color that married into that family that was treated horribly, horribly. And people within that family and people within the institution did little or nothing to support her, to defend her. And Kate the peacemaker, the future queen, showed absolutely no solidarity for her sister-in-law. Nothing. The future king, William the Great, has done absolutely nothing to support her. The family, institution, firm, whatever they are, when it comes down to it, it's still family. Harry worked very hard. Prince Harry lifted up and supported that institution better than anyone else could have possibly have helped, have supported during the period of time which he took over certain royal duties. There was no better front man for that band. But once he married the woman that he loved, he was treated like a pariah. He was cast out of the fold, made to feel less than. All of the pressure that was put upon him at a time when he should have been celebrating finding a life partner and becoming a father. Instead, he was made to feel worse. He was already struggling within the institution, but he, put on a good face and he helped them put on their best face. But when it came down to it, it was as though he was never a member of the family. It was like they took him from foster care and they got from him what they needed. And then, of course, when it came time to support him, they withdrew from him. They drove him out of the fold. In The Guardian, it says, Buckingham Palace banned ethnic minorities from office roles, papers reveal. The Queen's courtiers banned colored immigrants and foreigners from serving in clerical roles in the royal household until at least the 1960s, according to a newly discovered document that will reignite the debate over the British royal family and race. The documents also shed light on how Buckingham Palace negotiated controversial clauses that remain in place to this day, exempting the Queen and her household from laws that prevent race and sex discrimination. The papers were discovered at the National Archives as part of the Guardian's ongoing investigation into the royal family's use of the arcane parliamentary procedures known as the Queen's consent to secretly influence the contents of British laws. They reveal how in 1968 the Queen's chief financial manager informed the civil servants that it was not in fact the practice to appoint colored immigrants or foreigners to clerical roles in the royal household, although they were permitted to work as domestic servants. It is unclear when the practice ended. Buckingham Palace refuses to answer questions about the ban and when it was revoked. It said its records show people from ethnic minority backgrounds being employed in the 1990s. It added that before that decade, it did not keep records on the racial background of its employees. Exemptions from the law. In 1960s, government ministers sought to introduce laws that would make it illegal to refuse employment an individual on the background of their race and ethnicity. The Queen has remained personally exempt from those equality laws for more than 4 decades. The exemption has made it impossible for a woman or people of other ethnic minorities working for the household to complain to the courts if they believe they were discriminated against. Anyway, you could read more about that in the Guardian. I told you this was going to be a long one. I'm going to just throw this out there because this one, the British love to go back and relitigate or investigate mishaps and misdeeds from the past. Well, just remember I said this, backstairs Billy. Backstairs Billy. There was a long history of this particular servant. I believe he was, I guess you'd call him a butler or a footman or whatever he was. He worked for the Queen Mother. And for a long time, young men who left their family homes in small towns from around the UK who went into service of the Queen or the Queen Mother, Billy, whose name is actually William Talon. William Talon, also known as Backstairs Billy. He worked with the royal family. Talon's first job with the royal household was as a junior assistant at the Easter Court at Windsor in 1951. At the age of 13, he had been writing letters asking for work with the household for the previous 5 years. He was later employed at Buckingham Palace. He was set to join Queen Elizabeth II on her Commonwealth tour in 1953-54, but he was kept back and did his national service with the Royal Air Force. Subsequently, he asked Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, if he could join her staff at her home, Clarence House. She agreed, and he remained with her until her death in 2002. Now, Backstairs Billy, as he was named, this guy working for the royal family, he had a pretty sordid sex life, and some of the especially now during this Me Too era, some of the crimes that he committed against people that he supervised probably would have landed him in jail. But back in those days, there was such a stigma that it just wasn't discussed. But I think you should look into him because, see, there's a lot of things that go on in the royal households. And there's a lot of people who nowadays would keep that family in court if it were any other family. They would stay in court. We only hear, like for instance, when it comes to the Duchess of Sussex, they would easily brand her as being some type of control freak or narcissist or mean girl or something like that. But some of the crimes that have surrounded that family or people in service of that family, we have barely scratched the surface. Discrimination, race discrimination, is just one thing. But there's other things that have happened with people in service of that family. Paul Burrell. He wasn't exactly like William Talon. Not that I know of. But I'm telling you, if they ever, the Crown can only cover so many things. They can only cover so many things. And other things, even they won't touch. But I hope that they'll do something with William Talent. I hope they will. And Paul Burrell, if they would ever cover his role with that family. But just like Paul Burrell, William Talent really knew a lot of things about the Windsors, and he took those things to his grave. Prince Charles had to make certain concessions for him, making sure he received some type of a pension because he was loyal to the last breath. And his whole life was caring for the Queen Mother. So I'm really bad about adding links to my uploads, but do look into Backstairs Billy. Oh, if you want some salacious reading before you go to bed, you got to look into Backstairs Billy. William Talent, that is the guy that you want to look at. Interesting character. Interesting. Okay, so anyway, as I said, this is a long one. I'm going into 40 minutes, but there's so much I wanted to cover today. With all of this going on, I guess I'll close it out with this. Pretty soon, the Queen is supposed to meet with President Joseph R. Biden and Jill Biden. Dr. Jill and Joe are going to meet with the Queen. This will be, oh God, how many presidents have she? I think she started with Eisenhower. So this is what's happening. I hope that Jill will wear the lemon dress. Please wear the lemon dress. She probably won't. I mean, because she's worn it a couple of times, and it seems to have been a signal to show solidarity to the Duchess of Sussex. As you know, the Bidens and Prince Harry, they go back a long way. Prince Harry, the Bidens, the Obamas. It's like, I feel as though this is the best time for Harry to have walked away from that family. It seems like the worst, and, I'm sure in so many ways it is, because it really has taken a toll on the Duchess of Sussex, as well as Prince Harry, because they're being attacked from across the pond by that horrible tabloid media. But, I can take comfort in the fact that you have one current president of the United States, a former president, and those first ladies that are friends of Prince Harry. Then you also have the Oracle of Montecito, Oprah Winfrey, as well as, I don't know what kind of connections they still have with Tyler Perry, but I know the Duchess of Sussex never forgets a friend. That's why she has all these connections to people, is because of her letter writing skills and the fact that she's very formal about the way she corresponds with people. So anyway, good time for the Sussexes, even though it can be very stressful and straining, but I'm being very optimistic for their future. And then, of course, as for the Bidens, Joe Biden is heading east on official duty, so meeting the Queen is, kind of like a courtesy. But it's going to happen, and let's see what evolves from that. Don't expect him to go in there and say, be nice to this kid, but Joe Biden, he speaks his mind. If there's anything that put a strain on his relationship with Obama, even though there was a great deal of respect, Joe Biden is not very patient when it comes to things that he sees as an injustice. So I hope discreetly and privately with someone, maybe with Prince Charles or something like that, I'm hoping that they'll have a word. But, this is like a professional occasion, and I don't think it's like a state dinner or anything like that. It's just kind of tea at the palace or whatever. So, let's be optimistic about it. let's hope that there's something positive that evolves from that. I don't know if the mannequin and I don't know if they'll be there. Oh, one more thing. I told you this was going to be long. I have to talk about this. Okay, so Prince Albert of Monaco decided that he would put in his 2 cents about Harry and Meghan. This is the same Prince Albert who has driven his wife nearly to suicide. He could not marry the woman that he was in love with, who happens to be of African descent. No, he won't marry the air hostess. He won't marry the Carol Middleton of Africa. So he decided... I know that's unfair to his girlfriend, but he decided that even though he fathered a child with this woman, he could not marry her. There was no future for her and the Principality of Monaco. So he had to go and find a superior white woman from South Africa. So he married this, I believe she was an Olympic swimmer. And, she had the right DNA. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, everything that necessary to have a, proper woman in a white royal household in Europe, right? So he married his princess, and she, unfortunately, has kind of gone, how do I say it? She's having some struggles. I'll just say she's struggling mentally. Now, his wife, Charlene, she looks like a supermodel. She looks like Charlene Theron. Beautiful woman. Unfortunately, she has... I don't know her. I don't know the complete circumstances, just to be fair. But somehow, she has decided to start cutting her hair off. Literally, she looks like she's had some kind of breakdown. She looks like she's had like this Britney Spears moment. Now, she couldn't be at the Grand Prix because they said she had some infection while visiting South Africa and was unable to travel. Although, when you look at the photos of her, it looks like she's out, doing, not big game hunting, obviously. She's not doing that. But she's out at these, animal reserves, I guess. And, tracking wildlife and such, and bringing attention to the fact that, these species are threatened with extinction. She's doing all that stuff. But this poor woman seems to be on the verge of a collapse. They said that she tried to run away before the marriage. She's tried to run away. It's like she's been a prisoner. I'm not saying she was a prisoner, but it's allegedly they're saying that she's a prisoner in Monaco. And so somehow she's managed to get away. But they said that the intervention used to prevent her for getting out of this marriage has been incredible. Now, I don't know what the truth is about that. These are just the alleged stories out there about the Princess of Monaco. But Charlene, that is her name, Charlene, Princess Charlene, God, she seems to be long-suffering. And I hate to point this out. I'm just kidding. I'm doing it because I want to. Does Prince Albert look like Elmer Fudd? To me, he channels Elmer Fudd. And when you put him next to another, I guess, pudgy, middle-aged white man, Prince Andrew, God, they look like lost brothers or something. But what is it about those middle-aged, pudgy princes that seem to be so sweaty and clammy and always looking for some action? I don't know. But, yeah, it's a sad story. And I'm only bringing it up because this is another indication of how times have not changed for a royal bride. Times have not changed. You would think that somehow that they would have kept up with the times, but even though there are some feminist princesses out there, or there's some that even pretend to be, or they pay the lip service, they can only go so far, and then they're brushed back, because I think a lot of it has to do. I mean, yeah, you got to have some kind of political neutrality. We even expect the same for our first ladies. We don't want them to ever be too much of an activist. Otherwise, you have to pay a hefty price. Like Hillary Clinton, whose big offense was bringing health care to the country. You pay a hefty price. If you don't know the story, that's how Hillary Clinton's political downward spiral started while she was still First Lady. She was like this very popular figure until she tried to bring health care to the masses. And then there was this, downfall, and her character was challenged, and she's been paying the price ever since. So that's what happens to a high-profile woman who's intelligent and engaging and has a mind of her own, and promotes causes for other women. Somehow you're brushed back and you're treated. They want you to be seen and not heard. They want you to carry on like a mannequin. So anyway, I've unloaded a lot. I know I'm going to have a gazillion comments to go through, but even though I don't answer all the comments, I do, as you notice, acknowledge that I've at least seen it, and a certain percentage I do respond to them, but I do read them, and I have gotten some good information from everyone, and I use that to help promote this channel. And so if you do have suggestions, please keep them coming. Anyway, you probably guessed I just had a huge cup of coffee, and I had a lot on my mind, including the Princess of Monaco. Poor thing. Gosh, she just looks, oh, well, poor thing. Let's pray for her, shall we? Let's pray for all of them, even the ones that are making the trouble, because they need guidance, and hostility will not change them, and we don't want to be hostile toward anyone. We just want some clarity and understanding, and we also want people to, stop being a pain in the neck, So anyway, that's it. With malice toward none, as Abraham Lincoln would say. And of course, the Duchess of Sussex, she always says, no bad energy. I love that. Anyway, thank you. Please like and share. And if you have endured the entire, 50 minutes of this, God bless you. Also, if you can, donate to this channel. I have really spent some money to try to upgrade this experience, and yeah, so your support is definitely needed and always appreciated. And of course, share, and I'll try to remember to put those links, but oh gosh, by the time I get to that point, what can I say? I'm a baby boomer. Okay, thanks you guys. Thank you.